Assalamualaikum. So today I want to share on complementary feeding. Okay, so what is complementary feeding? It means that it is a process or a transition between when an infant takes breast milk and subsequently be supplemented with other foods other than breast milk or even formula milk. In simple terms, it means that when the baby first starts to eat. Okay, so why is it important? It's because from birth, when the baby is on breast milk or formula milk, the nutritional requirements are not met after a while when the baby reaches a certain age. When is the right time for my baby to start eating or get complementary feeding? So based from WHO, which is World Health Organization, and also American Academy of Pediatrics, these both large organizations recommend that the baby starts to take his or her first food other than breast milk or infant formula at the age of 6 months. You also need to look at the baby's development. Okay, why? It's because you need to know that the intestine is mature enough to receive this food. So what are the signs that you can look at? Is number one is whether baby is able to sit without support or requires little support. Okay, which means that if let's say the baby is sitting up, if you let go, then baby can just sit up on his own. Okay, and number two is baby has got good head control. So for example, you're sitting the baby down and you look at the head is rather strong and doesn't really wobble. And number three, that when you offer the baby food, the baby is able to open the mouth and sort of lean forward in order to receive the food. There's also something called the tongue thrust reflex. Okay, so in order the baby to receive food, baby needs to have a certain coordination of the lips and the tongue for you to, let's say when you're introducing the food to the baby is not pushing the food out. The baby is able to take the food in and able to chew it and keep the food in the mouth and later swallow it if this tongue reflex is no longer there. So that's the time when the baby is ready to accept solids. People tend to ask, can I give the food earlier? And if let's say the baby is really showing signs of he's always hungry, grabbing the food from the table, and you just feel you want to feed your baby early, even before less than 6 months. So experts still recommend to wait until the baby is 6 months and also developmentally ready because of a few reasons, right? Number one, if let's say baby is being exclusively breastfed, it is important, and research has also shown that if let's say the baby is exclusively breastfed for the first 6 months, it can give a lot of immune protection to the baby. For example, the baby will have less risk to have respiratory tract infections, okay, meaning like infections to the lungs and the throat and nose area. The baby will have less risk of ear infection of the gut, sudden infant death syndrome when the baby can just pass away anytime, and also the baby has got less risk of having type 1 diabetes mellitus. Will also be a higher risk of obesity. This is based on research. If the baby is fed earlier, there is a rapid weight gain in the adolescent as also in the adult period. Next, the important thing why you need to wait is because you want the baby's digestive system to mature, all right? So in the beginning part, the baby's cells in the intestines are actually quite far apart and which is open. So this will allow the entry of germs and even large proteins to enter. So in the beginning, when the baby is exclusively breastfed, it is very good because you want the immune factors to actually pass through the intestinal cells, right? But if let's say you do feed the baby earlier, less than 6 months, when the cells are still open and there's a gap in between, this will allow the proteins and even bacteria to enter, and with this will cause a lot of indigestion problem, digestive problems. The baby will have gas, flatulence, constipation, and even there's a high risk to get infection for this baby. So this is why you need to wait for until 6 months. Other than that, there is also other benefits to the mother. If you know that if let's say the mother is exclusively breastfed, there is something called the lactational amenorrhea method. It is a form of natural contraception in which if let's say you are exclusively breastfed, you don't have your menses yet, and you do breastfeed frequently, this means that you do have this form of natural contraception and is 98% effective. There is also a risk that your breast milk supply will also be depleted because as you know that in breastfeeding, we talk a lot about demand and supply, right? So the more the baby sucks, then the more milk that will be produced. So if, let's say, the baby is given feeding earlier, before 6 months, and that's the critical time when you want to exclusively breastfeed your child, and the baby is given food and the baby feels full and doesn't want to suckle as much and as frequent as he should be, then there will be less milk being produced, and after a while your milk supply will be diminished. Until then.